How did that impact you as a kid?
If I don't achieve something in my life, my mother wouldn't like me. I sort of realized this when I was doing my therapy sessions. That is the one point in my life first-handedly realized how a childhood incident can impact you as an adult, even in the decisions that you're taking today, right now. There was this one incident where, she was very harsh in her methods.
So you were seeking validation from your mother. Do you think the traditional education system is broken?
Does that mean that you should all stop going to school? Having a degree is not a safety net anymore. Having a job is not a safety net anymore. Our parents thought you would have a good life. If education system doesn't cater, this is the case in India, at least I can tell you. If you take a break year, it's seen as though you're a failure. Why do you have to study 24 years? Why is that a norm? I followed all of the general norms. I wasn't very happy with myself wherever I am. We're told that you have everything. Am I doing what I am passionate about, or am I just following my own superficial?
This service, do you think in a way it will heal you? Good morning, Rahul. Really excited to have you here today, and thanks for accepting my invitation today. Before we start, maybe I'll invite you to probably give a quick introduction on how we ended up here.
First of all, thanks a lot for inviting me to speak on your podcast. I think we've had a lot of conversations apart from career coaching, just in person, and I've enjoyed all of those conversations before. So I'm looking forward to this and really excited to speak in this podcast. So just to give a brief about me, I'm from Bangalore, India, and I did a Bachelor of Computer Science in India in Bangalore. I think I was one of those engineers that finished their engineering and then sort of figured that it was not their cup of tea. So that's when I started actually researching about what I really want to do in life. And I ended up doing Master of Business Analytics in Monash University in Melbourne. And I've been working as a business analyst for 3 years now. That's a bit of a background about me. And a fun fact that I wouldn't want to miss anywhere is that I was a national level table tennis player when I was a child. And sport was like a huge part of my childhood. I wouldn't be that child who's picking academic over sport or one or the other. It's always been the case that I've been doing sport and academics together. And when I was in university, I was doing uni and sports together. And even now, I'm a business analyst and a table tennis coach at the same time. So that's a bit of background about me and what I do.
Amazing, because I've always liked that approach and how you have carried forward that passion for you doing sports, regardless of what stage of life that you were in, starting that passion as, playing table tennis as a player, and then now carrying forward that and then sharing that knowledge to other kids, the other generations. But Let me take back to the childhood, because you said you were born and raised in India, in Bangalore. What were you, as a kid growing up?
What was I as a kid? If I look back from a third person lens and saw my own self as a kid, I would say I was a very hyper and energetic kid, and I think I had that natural flair to be like an outdoorsy person, and I would always love spending time outside the house, and I was never inside the house actually. I used to do all sort of dangerous things, to be honest. So usually kids used to climb up the ladder and go down the slide in parks. I was one of those kids that climbed up the ladder and just jumped from the top of the ladder just for the thrill of it. So I think I would say I was very energetic on a physical, ability, or, just trying out new sports, going out playing with friends and all of this. And I was quite flexible as well as a kid. And at the same time, I think when it comes to the mental aspect of it, I think I've always been a very calm kid. Like, I used to just sit in one place. It was like extremes of it actually. So there was no in between. Whenever I'm playing, whenever I'm outside, it's like, I'm out there, I'm doing whatever I want to do. But, I think in certain settings where, I don't know, I had this inner knowing that this is not where that version of me should be coming out. And it sort of was like, I knew where I had to be calm and, composed, if I can say that. So yeah, just to put it simply, probably was not a very usual kind of a kid. So that is how I would see myself. So other people also saw me to be a very calm and composed person on a mental level. But when it came to doing physical activities, I was very outgoing and, doing all of those things as well. So those two are the things that I can remember about my childhood.
That's very interesting because when I reflect on it, I mean, I find a lot of stories as a kid, like where I grew up back in Sri Lanka. Like I was usually extreme on the one end. Like I was also the calm, the silent. I was usually spending a lot of time
Right.
just by myself, not in a library, but at home, whether it's like playing a game or doing something. Even when I was in between a group of my cousins, I was just usually the silent one. But in terms of sports and stuff, I know that my father enforced me to do certain sports, pick up certain sports, but I was not the most energetic, I would say, in terms of physical activity.
Right.
Like, do you have siblings, Rahul?
I do. Yep.
So, what do you think how do you think it shaped you to become this person who's extreme at sports, very energetic outside, physical, but also that knowing of being calm at the very young age?
To be very honest, I do not have a answer to the question, but I can only share my perspective about it. I've always believed that as children, we all come with a certain knowing. As in, I do believe that, there is so life in general, in my perspective, is something that's happening in between a larger picture. And I do believe that we probably had, people call it previous lives or rebirth or whatever. Even if you don't believe in all of those, I just feel like, where do talents come from, or where do certain inclinations come from? If someone is calm or angry, for that matter, or they have a certain innate nature to them, where is that coming from? So I do not have the answer to it in terms of whether it's like, rebirth or whatever, but I do believe that we all come with a certain memory through our soul, if that makes sense, that sort of makes us a certain person. That's what makes us unique, that's what makes us different from another soul or from another person. So I think my perspective is that it's coming from that place. So there's no answer to it, like why was Pan this way and why was Rahul this way. I don't think we choose it. That's what I believe. You just come with a certain knowing, and you have a certain personality and an aura around you, and you just come with it, I guess. So like I said, life is something, in my view, that happens in between. Something happened before life and then we're born, and I also believe something happens after life, is like my belief. So I think during those transitions of like when you're experiencing this consciousness, you do carry something over, and I don't think you get to choose it. I don't think you become a certain child in your childhood. I think you come with certain traits, and on top of that, your environment, your parenting, your schooling, your friends, all of those sort of add to your persona that's already existing. And there's like a core inner being, and all of this sort of is like the tertiary or the secondary tertiary layers of who you are as a person. That's what I believe.
That's a very profound way to think about it, and sometimes that what stood me out, like stood is just with you how you interpreted it, right? That it's something, this inner being or this soul is not something that you can achieve, like it's something that you'll receive. And then of course after that, the environment, the parents, and then the experiences that you go
Correct.
through will shape how you will into that
Yep.
inner being into the outer world.
Yep.
So let me ask you, so that means I understand where you're coming from, like you feel like there is a sense of that aura gifted that you received when you were born, and that you carried that when you were a kid. But let's say, of course, in Asian cultures, I would say a lot of the things, how kids grow up or how they perceive world, has something to do with how the parents, support, or how they upbring, nurture the kids. How was like you what's your relationship with the parents?
I think it was really good in certain ways and not so great in many other ways as well. I think a lot of core traits that I hold today as an individual stems back to the good parenting that my parents have done initially. I think I'll use sports as an example because that's like a very fundamental part of my life, and that's actually shaped a lot of who I am, more so than school, I would say. Just to give you like a segue from speaking about how I was as a child, I think the first thing my parents did was they recognized that this child is sporty and he really enjoys playing sport. And they also recognized that he has a flair for picking sport very quickly compared to other children. So no matter what sport I picked, it could be cricket, it could be badminton, or anything else that I played. Cricket was something that I played very extensively when I was a child. I think that goes with every child in India, without saying. Every young boy in India in their childhood play cricket for sure. So they sort of recognize this, and I used to spend a lot of time in my childhood playing outside, playing cricket with my friends hours on end, and my parents had to literally drag me back home. I was that kind of a child. They recognize that I have a natural flair for it, and my dad always wanted to focus that on something productive. He used to tell me, rather than just going out and playing, what we call gully cricket in India, the cricket that you play on streets, you could rather use the same time and energy into something productive that is going to give you some result, or focus the same energy and time into something productive. One of my dad used to play cricket a lot in his childhood as well, even through his adulthood actually. That's how I was playing a lot of cricket as well. And it so happened that one of his friends, who also played cricket a bit but was actually a table tennis coach, and we accidentally met in a restaurant. So I was with my dad going out for my dad has a habit of drinking coffee twice a day, and he used to take me with him whenever he was going out for a coffee when I was a young child. It so happened that he met this friend of his, and me joining table tennis was actually an accident, sort of. Not an accident, but it was something that seems like just happened, out of the blue. It wasn't like sort of decided that, okay, this child is going to play table tennis and he's going to do this or that or anything. My dad happened to have a conversation with his friend that he's just going out wasting his time playing cricket, and getting tanned and all of this, and just spending his energy for something that's not focused enough, or something that's not giving him any results. That's when that person, who happened to be the owner of an academy and a coach himself, told my dad, why don't you send him to the summer camp that's starting, in 1 or 2 months from now, and maybe he can just play table tennis. So I actually didn't have any goals when I started off. I was someone who just picked the racket and just started playing. And like I told you, because I was really good at picking up things, I think I had really good hand eye coordination. My mechanics, even in terms of catching a cricket ball, for example, was really good for my age, even when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. So there is something called wall practice that you do in table tennis before you actually get onto the table. And it is basically hitting the ball to the wall, and you need to rally it back 100 times before you get on the table. So that's the rule the academy has, because they want you to get good eye coordination. They know that you can at least control the ball in a certain way. When you're like 5 to 8 years old and you're just playing, so I started when I was 7. A lot of kids didn't have that ability to hit the ball in a certain way that it comes back in a certain angle and you keep hitting it consistently the same way. So that's the goal of making 100 rallies. And usually no one made it in the first week, and I happened to do it in the first day. And I came back and told my coach that I finished doing 100 rallies, and he thought I'm just kidding, and I just jokingly came and told him that I've done it just because I want to play on the table. He didn't take it seriously, and he was like, yeah, you can just continue doing it, because he thought I would take a while. But then I came back and insisted that I've actually done it and I want to play on the table now. That's when he sent another senior kid who had started before me to just check if I've actually done it. And I did 100 rallies in front of him again. And, he came and told the coach. And that's when he thought, okay, like that's very surprising, but we'll start off. So that's how my journey sort of started off. Just to loop back the answer to the question, I think my parents have recognized the talents that I've had from a young age. They've given me a free hand at making my own choices and decisions. So there was this time when my mother sat me down and asked me if I wanted to pursue cricket or go ahead with table tennis. cricket was something I started playing when I was like 3, 4 years old, I would say, until 6, 7 years of age. And I was really good at it actually. But there's a lot of external factors that would decide your fate in cricket, because it's like a billion people competing for 11 spots for the national squad, right? And there's like a lot of things that you need to go through. And talent alone sometimes isn't enough to, sort of shine in cricket. So that's when my mother sat me down and asked me, what do you want to do? Like, she actually didn't tell me choose cricket or choose table tennis. She actually sat me down and she asked me, what do you want to do? Mind you, that was a 7-year-old child. And I think that was when she started sowing this seeds of, making my own choices and decisions in life. I somehow felt like I want to do table tennis because I believed what my dad guided me with. He told me that in a team sport, you could perform exceptionally well on a certain day and you could end up on the losing side. But when it comes to an individual sport, that is not the case. You usually get the result based on what you perform because you're the only person that's playing and it's an individual sport, right? So I think that made a lot of sense to me as a child. And I felt like my actions are sort of reaping the benefits or the loss of whether I'm winning or losing a game versus me depending on a lot of other people. And I think that was what made me choose table tennis. I would say giving me the liberty and freedom to make my own decisions, choices. They helped me make my own choices and they made me aware of the consequences. I think that was like the really great part about my childhood, how they have sort of helped me turn into the person that I am. Even today, my mother tells me that, whenever I make my career decisions or what I want to do next in my life, she tells me when you were a 7-year-old child, you made a choice and you are going to the national level in the sport. I think you have the ability to pick what you really want to do, focus on it, do something, achieve something in it. So whenever I make any unorthodox decision in the conventional societal lens, I guess she's more open to it because she understands and trusts my intuition and my gut feeling a lot more than her own fears and doubts that she has because it's an unconventional path. So these were like the good aspects of my childhood, I would say. And a lot of times there have been circumstances I've had to cope up with a lot of issues within the family as well. So those were sort of, I would say, not so good parts of it. I don't blame my parents exactly for the circumstances that I've gone through. I think a lot of times we have a lot of complaints about our parents, but I believe, truly believe that they do their best. And sometimes it's not the person that is not giving you the best. It's sometimes just the circumstance that sort of, makes things happen in a certain way. And that's why I believe that even if you find faults or, you see bad aspects to someone, I would still give them a chance because a lot of times it's not the person, it's just the circumstance a lot of times. That's like a long story of like the good and bad aspects of like how my childhood was.
Amazing to hear that.
What
Rahul.
about yourself? What would be like the good and bad parts of your childhood?
I think it's quite similar. If I had to explain, I mean, I've talked about it in previous conversations as well. Like I've always like been a kid. Like I was the eldest out of two. I have a younger sibling. But my mother and father has always given me that freedom to choose. But within a fixated model of
Right.
education, especially, but they haven't since I was very young. My mom, my dad have never asked me to choose this path. And there was actually, I would say, game changing decisions that I have made whether I've had to make between maths or commerce,
Right.
where I didn't like chemistry, for an example, when I was just about to choose my advanced level. I came back home and I said to my mom, I don't like chemistry.
Right.
But leading up to that point, I was like, I really loved maths. And then my parents, my cousins, my family members knew that I'm going to pursue a path in engineering because I loved maths and I've been getting so much of high scores on maths. And then it was like natural for me to pick that path. But for some reason, to choose maths, there are the subjects that I have to do. That's the education system: maths, chemistry, physics.
Yep.
Out of those three, I didn't really connect with chemistry, and I came back home and I told my mom, like, I want to choose a different one. I didn't have an option to choose biology because still chemistry will be a part of it. My mom said, okay, if you feel like you don't want to do it, what would you like to choose? And I said, maybe commerce.
Right.
I wasn't so sure because first, like, I was just thinking in between. Up to that point, I wanted to choose become an engineer, but all of a sudden it hit back because I didn't connect with chemistry. She said, okay. And next day she was talking with the headmaster, trying to explain why you want to switch from maths to commerce, something totally different.
Right.
And then I'm going into a commerce, a classroom full of commerce students, and my mom setting me up there.
Yep.
So that's where, like, my parents also have helped me shape or influence me to take my own decisions and trust my gut.
Yep.
Sometimes I feel as a kid, this is something I wanted to ask you. Like, do you feel that you will build that intuition like when you are so young? Like, I wanted to ask maybe in this way, when you picked up cricket or maybe picked up tennis, do you feel fulfilled?
I think in my personal case, yes, because I did achieve a few things in whatever I picked. I think it ended up in a good aspect, right? So I think in my personal opinion, I was happy with the choice that I made. And when I say gut feeling, I think it was also backed up with a lot of logic, which I believe even now. There is this aspect of your gut feeling that I believe is true, but I think your mind requires that logical reasoning for yourself to see how you're going to make it happen. So I think I had a combination of both of them. To be honest, I probably believe gut feeling is actually, or your intuition, a better word probably to use, is actually your subconscious making decisions, and it is quite logical. It's just that we don't understand the logic that it's making. So probably we should be following our intuition, but also we, not to prove anything to anyone else, but just for you to sort of convince yourself to go with your intuition itself is a big battle. Not to just show anyone that you've succeeded or not. I think that's where logic sort of helps our inner self-talk probably, right? That's my opinion, as in, I took a logical and intuition it was a combination of both. I wouldn't lean towards saying it was just, I just felt like taking table tennis and I took it up. It was backed with some logic. I think that's how I would look back on the decisions I've made.
Amazing. Let's go back into that circumstances. I know that there's a lot you talked about. Now, these are the positive things. Like, it's amazing that I connect with that too. Where are things where, in terms of, the relationship between you and the parents, I mean, let's dive into a circumstances where you, not in a way to judge it now, as you said, it's a circumstance and they did their best.
Yep.
But if you can reflect on one instance or one circumstances where you could have been supported better or guided better, what's one instance?
I think I can share my own personal experience. This could be different to different people, right? So maybe I can call this as parenting precautions to be taken.
Yep.
I think, again, all of these are stemmed into your own parents' subconscious thinking or their own unconscious patterns or whatever you can call it. Basically, what I'm trying to mean is anything that they're acting upon without knowing that they're acting upon it. I think that is what I'm trying to convey. One example is that like I told you, was actually a child that was very disciplined on their own. So I wasn't usually jumping around or, wasn't someone who used to just go out and, harm someone or, fight with someone or do anything of that sort. But my mother had seen a lot of children my age being that way. I would say one of the mistakes sort of that she made was that she thought if I don't discipline my child well enough, he's going to end up like the other children that I see around me who she doesn't want as a child, basically, right? So I think parenting is not like a manual that fits, that you can just read something and, this is how you parent every child. I think that is what she sort of did and over disciplined me and, in a lot of harsh ways, I would say, when I was a child, that me as a person didn't require it. So let's say, for example, I was a really naughty child. yeah, you would have like required that amount of, disciplining or, being harsh in your ways and methods. But again, she wasn't aware herself, she was just thinking. And my mom was a very young mother. Like, she became a mother when she was very, very young in today's standards of when people generally have children. So I actually wouldn't blame her, because I think to myself, what kind of a parent I would have been if I was that age, right? Like, I wouldn't have done anything better. So that was one of the mistakes I can say that she sort of made, where, probably disciplined me a lot more than me as a person required to be disciplined.
How did that impact you as a kid?
I think that sort of made me feel that if I don't achieve something in my life, my mother wouldn't like me. And I sort of realized this when I was doing my therapy sessions, and that's something that profoundly changed my life for the better, actually. And there were a lot of things that I have done in my life. That is the one point in my life where I first handedly realized that, in my own experience, how a childhood incident can impact you as an adult, even in the decisions that you're taking today, right now. There was this one incident where, she was very harsh in her methods. And that's how it sort of impacted me in a way that it's not actually true. She actually really loves her child, but how that child perceived, my younger version perceived that was, if I don't achieve something, or, if I don't do something in life, she'll not probably like me enough, because she was being harsh. That's how I perceived it.
So you were seeking more of acceptance or validation from your mother.
Yeah, and that ended up becoming this complex of having an overachiever attitude towards everything in life, right? Like, if I'm doing something, it can't be mediocre at all. So it actually worked out in a good way, where whatever I've done in life, or, whatever little that I've sort of achieved, whatever I've done until now in my life, push for it, I sort of got in. But I wouldn't say that it was the most healthiest way to sort of get there, right? So having the passion and the drive to actually want something, versus having motivators that are sort of making you feel a little negative on the internal side of things, and you're just doing it because you have to do it. So fear-based actions, right? So that's what I call it. Anything that is fear-based will also give you result, but how do you feel with yourself at the end of the day is what matters, I think. So that is one thing. And another thing was that there was certain dynamics in her own childhood, in her own family, and she had a certain sort of dynamic with her sibling. And she would think that I am the same kind of person, and, me and my sibling would have a similar dynamic. For example, let's say she's the youngest child and she had a elder sibling. Their dynamics was in a certain way, and which is not exactly true for me and my sibling. We get along with each other really well, and my sibling really loves me a lot, actually. So our dynamic was entirely different, but still she treated me in such a way where, I think she was seeing her elder sister in me as a elder sibling. So I always was, the one that got disciplined even when I was grown up. So my younger sibling is 10 years younger than me. So I've sort of been more of a father figure than like a sibling, because he was so young. Um, so I think crux of the point I'm trying to make is that parents sometimes have their own preconceived notions and unconscious patterns, societal conditioning, whatever. They just sometimes without their knowledge impart, or, carry this forward onto their child in some or the other way, in terms of how they parent their child or how they're bringing their child up. That sort of is like probably the negative aspect of, what parenting shouldn't be. So that is what my personal experience was. So this could be 100 other things to 100 other people, but this was my experience, that you shouldn't be parenting a child in terms of the general things that you see outside, or your own preconceived notions of how things are or should be. I think it's a parenting is the first personal coaching of life, I would say. it is very customized. It should depend on what the child is like and their characteristics and their aura or that inner knowing or whatever I mentioned. They're all unique, and parenting has to be and even in the same household, parenting can't be the same for the two children, because me and my sibling are like worlds apart in our thoughts, in the way we are and all of that. So I think don't just do general parenting. That's something that I have seen that, shouldn't happen. I think you should understand your child's needs much better, and sort of take steps that is individually like customized for your child, and not something that you just generally set as rules and boundaries.
Thank you for sharing that, Rahul, because I think the keywords that popped up from your response is these thought patterns or the actions, the habits that we or the parents have taken usually stem from fear. I
Correct.
truly believe now that I'm trying to build a bit more awareness of my childhood and how I behave now.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our thoughts are fear based, and the
Yep.
other is desire based.
Correct.
So I think, and as you mentioned, like maybe your mom had fear based on her upbringing, and then the
Exactly.
conditioning or the experiences, the hopes, fears that she has gone through,
Yep.
and then she projected them in you, and then that's why she tried to. Maybe it's a means of protection,
Mm-hmm. Correct.
right? But it's coming from a deep sense of fear that she
Correct.
had based on
Her own
her own
conditioning. Yep.
conditioning.
Yep.
Now, for someone listening, like, or maybe a parent or a kid, they might think that I'm doing my best. I'm
Mm.
just, this is the way it is.
Mm.
So sometimes they don't have that space to take a step back to understand what is general parenting, or am I treating my kid in a preconceived notion, or
Mm-hmm.
an unconscious
Mm.
pattern, because differentiating unconscious to conscious is the challenge, the way I see,
Mm.
especially, and it is quite important
Yep.
when you are a parent to understand that, and then only you will zoom out and
Mm.
see, am I behaving, am I reacting into this situation based on my fear, based on certain condition or an event or a trigger or maybe a trauma
Correct.
that I have gone through. How do you think, like, I'm sure, like, we can't go so much into trauma or
Mm-hmm.
anything, we are not specialists, but
Yep.
in that moment, in your own experience,
Mm-hmm.
what would you wish that could have changed, like, to change how your mother has responded to you? Were there any things that she could have done as a parent to
Mm-hmm.
a bit more aware?
I think one of the good things about my mother is that she's very accepting of her mistakes, and she accepts and openly sort of, says that she was sorry how certain things panned out in our lives and all of that. And I think that has sort of helped me sort of cope with everything that has happened in a very healthy way. I believe that the source of what caused you mental distress or an intense situation, if that person sort of comes to you and just says all of these things, it actually just resolves whatever you're going through, is what I believe. You can get a therapist, you can get all the service or mental health services that you need. They help, but at the end of the day, I think the ultimate goal is to make peace with that source or that person with whom you sort of had all of these conflicts or certain circumstances and situations that you have in your mind that they are sorry about openly. So I think that is something that really helped me cope a lot better. And I think, I don't know, maybe I was more aware as a child, and I would actually tell my mother that, I would tell my mother that you're disciplining me more than you are required to discipline me. And I used to tell my mother that I'm not one of those naughty kids that you see. I know what I shouldn't do, and this is not how you should be, disciplining me, or, being a wee bit harsher than you should be. And I was vocal about it actually. And I think that sort of helped me in terms of making her understand what my need is. Again, we can't expect every child to sort of do this. I don't know where I got the courage or, how I did it or whatever, but I think that comes from her giving me space to talk. Like, even if it is something that she doesn't like to hear, she gave me the space to talk. So I think creating that safe environment is something the parent can do. And I think the child will give you feedback if you give that, space for them to speak. It's almost like as simple as, a corporate world where a customer feedback that, let's say the parent is the corporate company or whatever we're selling or servicing, and let's assume the child is a customer and me being a business analyst. This is like the easiest analogy that I can think of. When it comes to personal relationships, it is a lot harder and easier in many ways to sort of openly express. What I'm trying to say is, if it is a product that you're reviewing, you wouldn't think twice about it. Like, you would say this is bad or this is really good. But when it is parenting, there is a lot of emotions and feelings around it, where, oh, could I hurt my parent if I'm saying this, or should I be saying this out loud? There are a lot of complexities, basically. But if you create an environment as a parent where you reduce those complexities and make the child feel like it is okay for you to give me open reviews about what's wrong or what's not being done right, I think the child will be the source of coaching you as a parent as to how you should be parenting them. I think that's been my experience, at least. So, creating a safe environment and giving a platform and space for the child to speak openly whatever they're feeling, even if it is something the parent doesn't want to hear, is the best way to be a good parent, in my opinion.
That's amazing, because it's a personal reflection from your own experience, and it seems to me that because of that space that was created by your mother, you have that opportunity even from a
Correct.
very young age to be a coach,
Yep.
like without even knowing,
Yeah.
right? To be a guide to your parent,
Yep.
and it's just like someone might be thinking, okay, that space, how long or how depth this space should be,
Yep.
because everyone's space should be different to each personality, each person, because we are all built up with all different cultural upbringings, conditioning.
Yep.
But at least you have the idea that there's a bit of space between me and the kid,
Correct.
that you're open to receiving feedback rather than me being the giver all the time.
Yep.
Right, just creating a relationship between I'm the giver and the receiver, and there's a space between.
Yep.
That's where you can have, like, find those moments where you can understand what is my kid is truly good at, what is this person feel fulfilled of, and then put more energy into driving this person rather than being fixated into a model where you think is best.
Yep.
That usually come from your own fears.
Yep.
It's amazing. Now let's dive into your education. Like, I know that even we come from a very traditional, very
Yeah.
hardcore educational system where
Yep.
it's like almost feels like a rat race. Now that I think personally, when I'm like spending here in Australia for a few years as a migrant, how do you feel the education system is in India, and how it shaped you? And do you think the traditional education system is broken?
I think yes.
And why?
I think a lot of us just conform. I think that's the primary issue. Now, does that mean that you should all stop going to school? Definitely not. I think there is a certain aspect to it where the parent should be aware that school is not enough anymore. School is necessary. You need to go to school to get the foundations and, the hard skills that you require to have. But I think there are a lot of other skills that the parent should teach the child. So a lot of people like homeschooling. It's becoming a thing right now in India also, and they're taking that route of homeschooling people. So what do I think about my own education? So in back in my time, I think we all just went with things, if I can say that, because honestly, my parents were from the commerce background,
Yep.
and my entire family actually is from the commerce background. I was the first person to sort of, do science in my 11th and 12th, and did engineering and did a master's as well in tech and all of that. So I was like probably like the odd person in the family, like in my dad's and mom's side combined. I'm the only person who took up science. So I think I didn't have a lot of guidance in terms of my family telling me what I need to be do. I think it was more of when it comes to a certain level where you're in 12th, like between 16, 17 and 18 years of age. I think the child comes to a place where they're more aware of the world today than the parents. And I think that's when the parents sort of take a back seat and they let the child decide, okay, you know today's world, you know what your interests are, pick what you want to do. To be very honest, there's very less guidance in terms of career coaching as well. And even if it is there, there's It's expensive, that's one thing. And there's not much guidance in terms of what am I doing? Do I really like to do this? It's all just, something like, okay, my friends are taking this and they're going to this university. Let me just follow them, sort of a thing. So, to be very honest, none of them were like logical, conscious decisions. And this is not just me. I think this is the entire system, like 90-95% of people, except for those ones that are, academically really good. They get into like IITs or IIMs, and they know from very young, as young as like, let's say 7 to 10 years old, that, I want to go into IITs and IIMs and the top schools in India. Except for those, I think the rest of them are just following, and they don't even know who they're following. That's the problem I see. So that's been my experience. And, after, like I said, after I finished my engineering, that's what everyone does, right, in India. It's like an open secret now. It's like you do engineering and then you figure what you want to do in life, right? So that is bad. It shouldn't be that way. So I
Let me
think.
interrupt you on that. So just going into that path of like, finishing something or at least showcasing to the world or the externals, do you think it's attached to self-esteem?
Sorry, could you rephrase that? I quite
Like a
didn't
parent guiding
catch that.
you or having that expectation from the outer world to complete an engineering degree or become a doctor. And then after,
Correct.
do you think,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So it's basically like, it's a safety net that, if you do a degree, you will get a certain kind of a job. You'll have something to survive. That's where it stems from. But I think the world has changed a lot since, I would say, 2010, 2015. Maybe it was true in the early 2000s, especially after 2020. We've all seen how many people have gotten redundant and, just cost cutting and whatnot. Engineering, I can talk about the computer science and the IT field specifically, has changed drastically. Having a degree is not a safety net anymore. Having a job is not a safety net anymore. And I think we're all suddenly thrown into a world where our parents thought that these were safe paths and you would have a good life and a safety net, which is what it sort of stemmed from, that you have to do engineering and then you can do whatever. But then I don't think that holds true anymore. Like, you can have a tech degree, you can have a job, a good job as well. But who's to say you're going to stay in that job, forever? And even the trend from both ends, a lot of people are getting fired and a lot of people are resigning as well. So that there's both sides of it, right? So I think it has changed drastically, and we should also adapt to the changes in the world. You can't just say, I'll send my kid to this school and, just let them go through the formal education and that will guarantee a good life for them. I don't think that works anymore. There's a lot of other things, a lot of other life skills, and, a lot of other thought patterns and mental conditionings that we need to teach children from a young age, sort of, to help them thrive in today's world. I think one of the major issues that I find in the education system is that we usually don't keep 20 years from today in perspective. Whatever a child who is, let's say, 10 to 12 or 15 years old today, whatever they're studying, maybe they're thinking a few years ahead, not a lot. That child won't be working in a job market that is the current trend. That child is going to be working 20 years from now. Education system doesn't cater to it in such a way that I'm preparing this child for 20 years from now. They just see the current scenario. This is the case in India, at least I can tell you. A lot of syllabus is in the past. It's not even in the present. They're not even teaching the present cutting edge technology, right? It's become a sort of a thing where everyone just go through it. People are usually just doing it because everyone else is doing it. And there is this very popular Steve Jobs video that I really love, and he says that we are told that this is the world and this is how we are supposed to live, and that's why we do it, and we never question anything. I think we should be a little more curious, be a little more open to change, and be a little more risk oriented rather than being risk averse. And another huge problem is that school teaches you everything that you sort of, in terms of your mental conditioning and the way you think, I'm talking about, teaches you so many things that actually deter you in your real life. It makes you risk averse. Schools make you risk averse. Like, one of the most important things for me as an individual is to pause and reflect on my journey, even if that means I'm not doing anything for a few months. And the education system in India specifically doesn't promote this, right? If you take a break year, it's seen as though you're a failure. That's one simple example I can give, where, why doesn't school let you have, like, why do you have to study 24 years of your life continuously without even a years of gap? Why is that a thing? Why is that a norm? It shouldn't be that way. I think children should be given breaks in between. One of the things that I would do if I was sort of running a school, right? So there are a lot of things that schools do that I don't really agree upon. It deters us from living or thriving in our lives as adults, probably.
I can say the same because how the way that I see it is like this is famous Naval Ravikant's way of saying, like, you have to pick something where you feel work as play, that is an effort for someone else.
Yep.
Right. So then for a kid you can identify that this the work or this play or whatever this kid is choosing, it's play for this person. So
Correct.
it's like less effort. It's
Correct.
very natural. Whereas the same skill, same task can be a lot of hard work, hard effort for someone else. And if you identify that, you can double down on it, and that's
Correct.
where you can in future you can build a product, service, scale it.
Correct.
So this is where like our school system like fails in that. As you said, yes, you can't omit the school, basic critical skill, thinking, problem solving. You need that knowledge
Yep.
to survive in the world that we are in still.
Correct.
But it's just about identifying certain touch points in a kid's, so that maybe giving a bit of space, maybe a break here, understanding what the kid is truly good at.
Yep.
For my example, like I chose ITE because I had like 4 options to choose from after my high school. But I knew that I have that passion, like I am good at this thing where I was competing or I was like in a group of other friends.
Yep.
I love to present. I love to talk with people. And I was the one who's picking up to lead the teams. And I feel like I've been doing a bit of mentoring to the mates in my same group. So that is a sense of coaching. But there was no degree to pursue coaching.
Yep.
Even when I now go back to Sri Lanka, when I say I'm a career coach, what is that? Is that a freelance gig? Right? Or when I say I own a business, immediately people have prejudice on if you have to have a business, it should be either fashion, retail, like something,
Correct. Yeah.
something physical,
Conventional. Yeah.
conventional.
Brick and mortar.
So there's a lot of things that the traditional educational system can adapt to it while having the basics as the foundation to support the next generation of kids.
Yep.
And especially identifying that.
Yep.
Now, in terms of life skills, what are some life skills that you wish you had learned when you were a kid?
I would like to say I learned life skills as a kid through sport. Lot of life skills through sport, and I've actually wrote a blog in 2019 about this. That I've learned a lot in my sporting career than in my school. Draw comparisons, I would say. Let's say, for example, school sort of has this system where you're graded, right? So there's a chance that 2 kids can end up with the same grade. How do you separate them? So that doesn't happen in school usually. Maybe they become like the joint top scorers or whatever. There is a chance that, let's say, there's 30 children in one class, all of them can get the same grade, right? So that's sort of creating a thought in the child that, we could all be on the same level, sort of, without actually having a conscious thought about it. What I'm trying to say is sport doesn't do that. You either win or you lose. And that's how life is actually. So there's no consolation prize, or, that, okay, all of you have gotten the same grade or whatever, right? So I think sport taught me that life skill where no matter how much effort you put, you could still end up losing. And that's what life actually is about. Versus school saying that if you put equal effort, you could end up as equals, which is actually not true in life, right? It rarely happens. That's one example I can think of. resilience for that matter. If I am not allowed to fail in school at all, and I don't know how to cope with failure when it happens in my life in the future. So in our adulthood, it's not something that, I don't think there's anyone who can say I've never failed at all. It wouldn't have to be like a huge failure. I am talking about any small thing that makes you feel that you didn't do something well enough in your life. That's bound to happen to every adult in their life. School doesn't equip you to cope with that. Whereas if you're a sports person, there's this famous quote, right, where Roger Federer says his 100 wins are due to his 1,000 losses. I think it promotes that risk taking ability and, being resilient after failing. After you failed, it gives you that hope that there's another match tomorrow or another chance that I can have at life. A lot of such examples that I can think of, those are the two things that I can think of right now. But a lot of other life skills, I think they're all mostly mental. So your cognitive ability to be resilient as a person, decision making. School doesn't help you make decisions. They just instruct you what you need to do, and yeah, you need to just do this. It's all rote learning. You memorize this, you write this, you get the grade, right? It doesn't give you open-ended questions. Doesn't ask you enough. And life is all open-ended questions. Life doesn't come with a manual where life is saying, okay, you do this, and you're guaranteed this. Like nothing is guaranteed in life. So that's another example. So I can go on and on with all the life skills, but I think what I'm trying to say is that school does what it does in terms of teaching you hard skill, but I think soft skill is something the parent has to teach separately to the child, or they have to be exposed to certain environments like the sporting environment for me. How to be friends with your biggest rival on court. Someone could be like my biggest rival in a tournament, but we would both go and have a drink or have some food together outside. So sport has taught me that, like, to have respect. Even if someone's your biggest competitor professionally, you can still be the best of friends with that person, is what sport taught me. So a lot of life skills, sport has taught me a lot more and in better ways than school could teach me. I think school just doesn't have the time to, go through all of this. There's just one moral class lesson or something that even the teachers are not interested to teach, actually. I think that's the thing, that is a school of its own, and it comes through experiences alone, I feel. I would like to say I was lucky enough to get those life skills through another environment, which was like sports for me. And a lot of children don't get that as well, because a lot of parents are stuck on that, they have to just study, and, sport or extracurricular is just a waste of time, doesn't take them anywhere, and which is not at all true. You being a career coach, you will know what is the base salary for a business analyst, junior business analyst, versus what I was earning as a table tennis coach was 2.5x on an hourly basis. What school told me, and what the society in general told me, was that if I don't study and if I just play sport, nothing's going to happen out of that. But the real world is showing me different data. I'm earning 2.5 times more money because of my sport than my 24 years of education, right? So there's a big disparity between, what people are taught in school and what the actual ground reality of life is.
Amazing. Like, it's fascinating to hear like a data driven like insight about, how it reflects now after 20 odd years, and how it shaped you to earn what you are earning right now. One thing I want to ask is you, Rahul, I know that you have been doing like, working as a business analyst, and then now like, there's a bit of a transformation, and then you have this vision to build something on your own. I feel that it's something similar to my journey, because when I was working at the middle of a pandemic, I got a redundancy where it handed me some space to think, what should I do? Even though I was applying for different roles, I think that space has allowed me to put my energy into something that I'm truly passionate about, or to listen to my inner energy, and then take some actions that drives me to act on it.
Yep.
Right. What happened after your corporate experience?
Yeah,
And
I think the crux of the story is that I followed all of the general norms of the society, just like all of us do. One point I just realized, that I wasn't very happy with myself wherever I am. Let's say when I started off as a junior business analyst, my salary was X, and then the next job was X plus whatever percentage, and then you get a big hike, and all of that is well and fine, but am I doing something that I really wanted to do? For example, I took up the career as a business analyst because it pays well. Honestly, that was the decision that I made 4 years ago. And I realized after doing 2 or 3 jobs that that bump in salary, or the salary that you get every single month, the figure is higher, but it is not making me any happier. And the more I've been working in the same profession, it's actually not mattering to me whether you get 3,000, 4,000, 10 or 15 or 20,000 a month. It is actually not making a huge difference, as in terms of how I'm feeling about that. So the main reason why I took up something and I was doing something which I think we all do as young adults, we want to earn good money, and we're told that that is one of the myths, right? We're told that, oh, you earn well, you have everything, and you're happy. That's actually not the case. And I think that's where this thought of mine came, that am I really doing what I'm passionate about, or am I just following my own superficial goals that I've set for myself, which is not actually making me feel fulfilled? So I think that's where it sort of stemmed from. Because I have a backup as a table tennis coach, I can still earn well enough and pursue something that I'm really passionate about. So that's the reason I want to build a community where parents are given good knowledge, and they're shown pathways where they feel safe for their children to pursue something that's not conventional, and create platform and the knowledge for the children to pursue those pathways and become something. I think the world is ever changing, especially with all the AI stuff and exponential developments that are happening in the world. I think we should be more flexible as a society, and we should adapt to change as quickly as possible. And I want to be someone who's facilitating this change on a mass level. Like, I want to have a platform that's enabling a child to express their individuality, hone their skills, hone their talents, the inner knowing, and the innate talents that they came with. Like we started the podcast about, hone that inner knowing that the child has, so that they're living a more fulfilled life. The gist of it is that conforming and just following, it makes you realize one or the other day it could take 20, 30, 40, 50 years or whatever for each person. That point is different, but we come to that point where, okay, this is not fulfilling, I should do something. So I feel that children shouldn't learn this the hard way through 30, 40, 50 years of pain. I think there should be a way where children are taught what actually matters in life, what makes them fulfilled, what makes them passionate, what makes them more value driven, and what makes them have more impact on the society. I think we should be starting that from age 5, is my personal opinion. I want to give children a head start of knowledge, that people who realize at 30, 40, 50 years old and feel that they're not happy, that shouldn't be happening in the world. Everyone should be doing what they really love to do, and everyone should be living the life that they like to live, and they should take conscious decisions rather than just conforming and just following. I'm building something that sort of makes this happen on a mass scale, and also helps parents and children in their journey. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do right now.
It's like a service that I feel like that, because, and also the connecting the dots part, talking about your own childhood experiences, how it shaped you, and then now you are trying to give back.
Yep.
My last question is, this service, do you think in a way it will heal you?
Definitely. I think that is probably the core reason why I am doing it. Whether I admit it or not, I would like to sit with a therapist and ask them, I have come to this conclusion and decision to do this. I want you to unpack for me why I'm doing this. I'm very curious about that. But I have a gut feeling that that is true, and it is very closely related to my own experience, and probably would help me heal my inner child through this work of helping other children, is what I believe.
That's very deep and so powerful. I mean, we can talk on this forever, right? It has been fascinating and really amazing to have this conversation with you. So every podcast we end up with one final question. So since the podcast is unlayered, let me ask you, what's one layer that you unlearned today?
What's one layer I've unlearned?
I know it's a question that you'll have to reflect, but
Yeah.
maybe it's like one takeaway from like
Yeah.
if you've unlearned.
Yeah, I think just from the final question that you asked, I think that was like the most impactful question that you asked. I think a lot of times we just need to admit things to ourselves, and I think that makes things easier. What I mean by that is, the question you asked, it is true that probably I'm trying to heal myself through doing this as something that I want to do as a service. So yeah, I think I just learned that probably look inwards and just admit to certain things, why you're doing certain things. And I think that internal self-talk that sort of happens is something that I should be better with, probably is a layer that sort of I unlearned. Not doing that is the layer that I've unlearned, and it actually helps you a lot. So it should be in a way where you're talking to yourself in a healthy way and in a very transparent and honest way, and not trying to hide things from yourself.
That's beautiful. Thanks so much for Rahul,
Yeah.
and thanks for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll get the chance to have another conversation like this.
Definitely.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much.